Hey, and welcome to the Business of Healthcare podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. So, in this episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about the importance of understanding the context in which you work. This was drummed into me when I did my MBA in Leadership and Management in Healthcare. I graduated, I think, in 2016, and yet in 2026, I'm still banging on about it. And if any of you have ever done a leadership course, you will know one of my modules is understanding the context in which you work. It's so important. And I think it's me taking the time to understand is why I've probably had my consultancy for as long as I have, coming up to 11 years, because I'm genuinely interested. And I will always say there are multiple shades of grey when it comes to the thoughts and opinions on why things work and why things don't work and people's view on policy. There are multiple shades of grey. There is a reason why people think the way they do, and it's fascinating to understand why with no judgement. It really is. So I read a lot of policy and I don't agree with it. I can be quite neutral to it. Yep, I like to read the policy because I want to understand, okay, well, that's what government think is going to lead to like X, Y, and Z. So when things start to roll out at a system level, I understand where that's coming from. It's coming from on high at a macro level. So there are probably more than this, but I like to concentrate on kind of 4 key layers of context. You've got the macro context, so the things that are happening at government, kind of in the economy, national policy. So the government will set their priorities based on the advice, I say loosely, advice of experts and professionals down on the ground. They are informed by people doing the job. I choose to believe that. So that's where you like have health ministers and education secretaries and things like that. So one example of understanding the macro context is the national insurance increases. And that will have an influence on unemployment, and that will have an influence on, like business. Those sorts of things kind of come at a macro level. There are things that we are not in control of. They happen to us. And the reasons will be that the government are trying to save money or redistribute funding streams, of which there will always be a loser. There will never be enough money. There will always be families or sectors hit the hardest. And that happens at a macro level. And I like to read the policy. I don't agree with it. I can read it quite neutrally and just think, okay, this is happening. Because they think X, Y, and Z, they're trying to achieve A, B, and C. Then you've got like your system-wide context, like your NHS-wide decisions, which are influenced and informed by the macro environment, which are influenced and informed by government. And you've got NHS England being abolished and being absorbed into the Department of Health and Social Care. You've got the NHS 10-year plan. ICBs are being restructured. You've got your system-wide changes, but then even at a kind of a lower level, at your integrated care board regional level, things may be different based on the population of those areas. Okay, so you've got your system-wide context. Then you've got your organisational context, so like your patch where you work inside of your organisation. So it's like, what does the macro environment, how does that influence and affect your day-to-day business and day-to-day how you carry out your work? Every area is different. But the challenges will be similar. They are similar. But neighbourhood health in each ICB, in each primary care network footprint will potentially look different, which is heavily influenced by people's personal context. So where you've worked, why you work there, the experiences that you've had in your work, the experiences you have had personally with navigating the NHS, your business risk tolerance, how you view the world. You know, like some people view the world, the glass is half full. In other areas, in other people's, it's half empty. And it all it really does matter. And I think if you only approach your job from where you think and why you think it, I think you're making life unnecessarily hard for yourself. Because there will always be somebody that thinks differently to you. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing bad in that. It really isn't. I think it makes the world a richer place. So really understanding people's vantage points and why they agree and why they disagree. And I think it's really important. Like I like to read, like I listen to different people's podcasts and I read different publications. Some publications I view, they're more on the negative side. That's my view. But I'll always read it. I'll always think, oh, okay. I didn't see it like that. Okay, and now I understand. So when I meet people that have got a certain view on things, I understand where that's coming from, alongside asking them and not just making assumptions. So really taking the time to understand, what's your view of X? When the NHS 10-year plan was released, and also big policy documents are released, there are some people that read every single word, like me. I'll make a blog out of it. I read it, and writing a blog helps me, like absorb it. So I'm not skim reading it, like I really want to read it. And one of the things I'd say about AI is great for summarising it, but it misses the nuance of my context and some of the context of my readers. So I do have to read it because the context really matters to me. I am strategic and I love to make a strategy, but I also always thinking, how are we going to implement this? So part of my context and my world and my vantage point is, that's all great, but what practically, tangibly, how is that going to influence me or affect me, or how can I make that happen? So that's always the mindset I'm looking at the world in when it comes to my job. So a good example would be, when the NHS 10-year plan comes out, people, read it cover to cover. They do webinars on it. They write blogs on it. I'm talking about myself in this. I think it's an important piece, an important document. I will be working with people that have not read it, have no interest in it, have no idea what it says, and they just don't care. I also see this a lot in when the private sector works with general practice in my context, and they will come really armed with, well, this is what the direction of travel is, and this is what the government say, and the clients or the potential clients are like, no, don't. I am concerned with A, B, and C right now. That's what's really important to me. So it is really trying to understand and trying to put yourself in the shoes of other people to understand their context. The context matters. The context affects the content. So I think the caveat is, though, when you are trying to understand the context of your recipients and the people that you work with, approach it with genuine curiosity. I think people can tell the difference between curiosity as a tactic versus a genuine, I generally just want to know, I'm genuinely interested. I think there's a lot of wariness about being sold to when you work in the NHS, and I absolutely get it. So I think really approaching it from a place of help me understand. I always say to people, what am I missing? Or what is important to you that I might not understand? Or what are your views? Especially when things come out in the news, I'll be like, I'm not on Twitter, but Twitter was quite a helpful place, or X now. Used to be a helpful place when things would come out. I feel like people would rush to Twitter and they would share their opinion. It got a bit too negative for me there, but it is, I would say, this has come out. or there was a documentary on X, what do you think about it? And just getting their views is always really helpful. And I also think it's important to try to listen to opposing views. So I tend to be more on like, not everything, but it's an opportunity. And when things come out, I'm like, how are we going to do it? Whereas other people like, Tara, don't be so quick to do X, Y, and Z. Like, what message are you sending to the system? And I think, I've not thought of it like that. So it's really good to understand, not to disregard people's opposing opinions. I did a document on like the pros and cons of neighbourhood health, just for my own insights, to help inform my views. And I think it makes me a better consultant because I genuinely take the time to understand the different vantage points. But you can understand different vantage points and different experiences and different views and different opinions and still hold a strong opinion. You don't have to be, like completely neutral. It's just about taking the time to understand the context. So I think I just want to end this podcast and leave you with some questions. So do you truly understand the context you are moving into in 2026 at the time of recording and how it shapes your perspective? Do you understand the macro, your system level, your organisational and the personal context of those in which you work? And if you haven't got the strongest of relationships, I definitely would start there. You'd want to understand, like, help me understand your world. If you can go in person, like, do it in person. It's so important. And I always say, if you can, Ben Gowland taught me this, and he said, make it easy for people to work with you. So if it's the choice between a phone call and an online Teams call, you choose the Teams call. If it's a choice between an online Teams call or in person, you go in person. The amount of people that's like, it's inconvenient for me. I just don't think that's the right attitude. Sometimes travelling halfway across the country is inconvenient for me. But the richness of the conversation and the foundations of the relationship is priceless. It's a pleasure. It's not inconvenient for me. I like it. And if I can't make it work, if I can't be in two places at once, or there's something happening which I have to be there for, then I will just communicate that. But if people want me in person, I will go. And it will always be I will always offer it. And a good example would be one of my clients is in the Isle of Wight. I'm based in Whitstable in Kent. And will I be going to the Isle of Wight once a month during the course of the contract? Absolutely. Absolutely. And when that contract came up, I did say, you do know where I live. And they're like, yeah, you don't need to come. Like, it's happy to be virtual. And I was a bit like, oh, okay. And then as we started working together, I was like, well, I'll come in for that. And I'll be there a few days. Like, I'm not coming in for one meeting, then I'm rushing home. I'm going to be there. So make it easy for people to work with you. Sometimes it's not always possible to get it perfectly right all the time, but understanding people's context and building that relationship is fundamental. And then when people push back, be curious. Are you curious about why they think that? What are you learning? What are you missing? What experience do they have that you don't have that you can take note of? You don't have to agree, but you can definitely take note of it. Asking them how the macro environment, don't say, how is the macro environment affecting you? But asking them specific questions so you get an understanding of what's important to them. So from a primary care network point of view, the new show in town is all around, or the new agenda is, or the latest agenda is neighbourhood health. And asking people, what do you think neighbourhood health means to you? How do you think, what are your biggest challenges that you are facing in your practice today? Think about the neighbourhood health agenda. Does it touch the sides or not? And if it doesn't, then you're like, I understand. When I say X, Y, and Z, people just go blank because it's just not a priority. And leading with fear. So a lot of people say, well, if we don't do it, if general practice doesn't step up, then we'll be taken over. And you're trying to lead people by scaring them, using a fearful narrative. But it doesn't touch the sides of the people. If that's not their reality, if they are experiencing challenges that they feel that the neighbourhood health agenda could not positively impact or influence, they don't care. They really don't. And it's okay for them not to care. You need to learn more about what's important to them and meet them where they are versus trying to get everybody to meet you where you are. I think, and that is, when you understand the context you work within, you just get it. You know what to say, you know what not to say, and you know how to guide people very gently, very slowly, versus pushing narratives at them that just don't resonate with them. So I hope that you found that episode helpful, and this approach is shaping some of the podcasts moving forward. So we've got a series coming up called How It Got Commissioned, and I am speaking with health and care leaders that at the time managed to get a service commissioned without going through the usual kind of procurement routes, because they were trying to do something different, and perhaps that service didn't exist, or they saw an opportunity and there was some funding which had some flexibility and they went for it. So I'm interviewing industry leaders to understand how did they get their services commissioned in their context, and what can we learn from the context. Will never be exactly the same, but are there any lessons that we can take from their context that potentially we could use in our context. So that series is coming up. It's all filmed for YouTube, and I'm looking forward to putting that out in the world. We recorded it back in 2025 and we put a halt on the project, but now we are ready to put that out into the world. So I hope that you found these questions helpful and insightful, and I hope that you tune in for our new podcast series titled How It Got Commissioned, being released weekly. So I'd love to know what you think. Take care.